Hello and welcome to this tutorial called Crane Pickup and Drop-Off. This tutorial explains how you can use a crane to pick up a box from an incoming spline and drop it on another spline. The tutorial combines learnings from the basic tutorials. First we'll take a look at the scene hierarchy here on the left side. As you can see, we have here a desk controller at the top of our hierarchy with a number of objects within it. The disk controller defines the speed of the simulation over here. I put it to the 1 so it will be easy to see what's happening in the scene. If we go to the box actor, that is the box which will be used to be transported by the crane. You see it has a box actor script on it, which looks like this. It's an empty script with a desk actor base class which is used. So you can move around in the scene. That's it for that one. Then we have the input spline. If you go into the input spline is here with the red dots in the scene. It has two queues and an instructor. If you look at the first queue spawner, that is where the box will be spawned into the scene. It is defined on the input spline, as you see here on the input spline, and it has assigned a spawn instructor. And we'll take a look at that a little bit later. Then we have the queue pickup, which is here where the crane will pick the box up. This one is assigned to the crane instructor to be able to request to be picked up. I'll come back to that later. Then we have the spawn instructor, and the spawn instructor is based on a predefined blockable spawner script. And here we define the motion tensor on the box when it is spawned. So you can see it uses the input spline. It has a thickness of 0.01 meter. The velocity curve is here defined, and it has an absolute and translation motion. Okay, so that is the input spline. Then we will go to the crane instructor. The crane instructor is a little bit more complex. Here, if you look in the inspector, you see that the crane instructor has a script on it. Just took a very short glimpse on it now, so it's a relatively long script. We'll come back to that later. And it has defined here an output spline tensor, so that is the speed of the box when it is dropped on queue drop off here, and it will move on the output spline. So you can see here it's defined on the output spline. That's a thickness, a sort of velocity curve, and a certain motion. Another thing which we have is the crane assignment buffer, which will store assignments when boxes hits the queue pickup here. When the crane is busy, they will be stored in a buffer. We also have motion web actors in the crane. So we have 3 actors: the crane rotator actor, crane vertical actor, and the crane horizontal actor. And we have a number of splines also where these actors can move over, and they are defined over here. So you can see the horizontal main path. You have this array. You have also the vertical main path, and you have the rotation main path. We'll come back to that later. Okay, that is a part of the crane instructor. If you go inside the crane instructor, it has a hierarchy. So this is the base, which is fixed in the scene. It will not move around, so it's fixed. You have the crane rotator actor over here. I will zoom in a little bit. And the crane rotator actor is the complete structure which will be moved. So if I just show you here, you can see it moves the whole crane. The crane rotator actor has a very simple script on it. You can see it here. It's based on the motion web actor, but for the rest it's empty. And you can also see that the starting node is queue rotation pickup. So when we start the simulation in play mode, the crane rotator actor will move to this queue. Okay, if you go inside this hierarchy, you will see that there are a number of actors inside. We have the crane vertical actor, which I will show you what that is. This is the crane vertical actor, and it also has an empty script on it based on the motion web actor class, and it is starting at queue vertical top. And if you go inside this actor again, you will see that we have the crane horizontal actor, and that is this guy which is moving back and forth. Okay, and this one also has an empty script, as you see here, motion web actor. And the starting node is Q horizontal in. Then let's see what we'll show next. Then I will also talk a little bit about the motion web, which is created using a tool called Actor Motion Path Tool, which is explained in a different tutorial. So if we go here, you see here is what I just talked about, but here I have the motion web of that actor is defined separately. And inside this one, you have the spline, or this is the spline. And you can see it if I zoom out. You have the spline. This is the rotation spline, the big one here, half circle. And you have a number of Q on that spline. That is the Q rotation pickup, which is here on the side. But okay, so this is rotated 90 degrees compared to the crane, but that is not a problem. It's a relative movement. So you see this Q over here. It is here, but actually you should think it's over here because the crane is coming here now. Whatever. You have Q rotation pickup. Its spline is the rotation main path, and it's assigned to the crane instructor. So it means when the crane comes to this position, it will be able to pick up a box there. Then we have rotation halfway here. That's the only dummy Q, which is used to create this half circle. And then we have rotation drop-offs over here. So that is when the crane is actually at the drop-off position here. Then this position is also tied to the crane instructor, as you can see over here. Then I will go to the next one, and that is the motion web actor of the vertical part. It's over here, and it has the same structure. You can see we have a spline over here, so I will just zoom in. So this is the vertical spline, and it has two Qs, the vertical bottom, which is also tied to the crane instructor, and Q vertical top, which is also tied to the crane instructor. And then finally, if you go into the next level, we have the crane horizontal actor and the motion web horizontal actor. Inside this guy, we have, of course, our spline. If I select it, you will see that. So here you have the spline, and it has two Qs, Q horizontal out, which is here, Q horizontal in, which is over here. And both those Qs are tied to the crane instructor. Okay, then I will go next to the output spline. If you look inside the output spline, you see two Qs and an instructor. Q drop-off is over here. So this one is actually not used, but I will just explain. So you can see it here also in the inspector. It does not have an instructor tied to it. That's not necessary, and I will explain a bit later why. And you also have a Q destroy here at the output of the output spline, which has a destroy instructor tied to it. And that instructor is defined over here, and it has a predefined actor destroy instructor script tied to that Q. So the box will be destroyed at that moment when it hits that Q. Okay, that's it. Then I think I will go into the crane instructor script to show you how that looks like. The crane instructor script will open from here, and we'll start at the top. So this script, the crane instructor, is based on the motion web instructor class. The first thing we do is to define the motion tensor on the output spline when the box is dropped on the output spline, and this can be done in the inspector. As you see, it's a public field. That's just what you just saw in the inspector. Then we will define an assignment buffer where assignment will be stored when the crane is busy and a box hits the pickup Q. Then we have apply instruction, which is always part of an instructor. And here you see first we update the base class of the apply instruction because this is an override method. And the next thing we do is make sure that the only center Q triggers are used. And the next if statement makes sure that only box actors events are used. So, for example, if a crane actor triggers cues, that will not that will trigger the apply instruction, but it will not pass this if statement, so it will return false here. The next thing we'll do is to call a function called request pickup by crane, which is defined below here. So we'll go there now. This method is triggered when a box hits the pickup queue. First, it defines the crane assignment buffer and puts in assignments in there. Then we define the three actors in our scene, the rotator, vertical and horizontal actors of the crane. This will be used in the state machine later on. Then I define three functions. This is the on arrived at pickup location, which will be called when the box hits when the crane actually comes to the pickup position. Then it will destroy the motion tensor on the box to be able to parent it to the crane, which is happening over here. The next function, on arrived at drop-off location, will be called by the state machine when it arrives at the drop-off queue. Here you see that we will unparent the box from the crane and put a tensor on it on the output spline. The next function is called do on done with assignment. In this function, you see that we will check if there is a new assignment in the assignment buffer. And if that's the case, we will use that one and run the state machine again. And if not, we will exit the whole crane instructor script. Okay, the next thing we will define is the sequencer or state machine, as I call it. Here at the top you can see that this function will be called when the machine is completely ready with all steps. Each step has the same structure. You see a name of that step, you have a certain speed, a certain actor which is moving, and the target queue where we will stop this step. So the first one is to go to the top position vertically and stop at this queue. The vertical actor is moving with a certain speed, 0.1 meter per second. Sounds low, but this model is quite small in size, so that is realistic. Then we are going to the auto position with the horizontal actor, stopping at this queue and making sure here that the previous step is the number 1 step, so it's linked to this one actually. So when this one is finished, it will go to number 2. Then we will rotate to the pickup position with a certain speed. You see the speed is a little bit higher than the lateral movement over here. That is because the half circle spline is quite long because it's at a distance from the crane. And so forth. Then we can go here to horizontal out, then we will go to the vertical bottom position to pick up the box actually. And here you see when we arrive at Q vertical bottom, we will run this function, which was defined here a little bit earlier at this location. And there the box will be parented to the crane and taking away the motion tensor on it. Then we'll move to the top position, go in, we will rotate to drop off, and we'll go out again and go down to the drop off position. And at that location we will run the other function called arrive at drop off location. So it will be unparented and given a motion tensor to move on the output spline. Then we'll go back to the start position again. So we go to the top, go in, and rotate to pick up. Then the next thing we do is to add this sequence or register the sequence and start the state machine. So that is the crane instructor. Then maybe we should take a look at what is happening in the scene in play mode. So now I will start the scene and we'll take a look together. I'll play it a little bit slow so you can see what's happening. And we can take a look in the console when the crane is called. So we'll give a message over here. So you see now, there you see a message comes, crane, go and pick up material. So now the state machine will be called. And the crane starts to move through the steps in the state machine. Sorry. It will go down, pick it up. And as you see now, the next box triggers the queue here. And that will be put in the assignment buffer. And yeah, as you see, it is also asking to get the state machine, but that is busy at this moment since the crane is busy. So the crane will rotate to the drop-off position and drop the box and put a motion tensor on it at that moment. And as you see at the end of the destroy queue there, it will be destroyed. And the crane will go back to start position and take out a new assignment from the assignment buffer and pick it up and do the same again. That was this tutorial. Thank you for your attention and see you in the next tutorial.